If you remember, last fall we visited Bob Constein's place. We went down there mainly to look at his pumpkins, but he also showed us some archway trellises that he had built out of cattle panels. He was growing gourds and some other vegetables on them. We liked that idea so much, we decided we're going to build one of those ourselves. We're going to put it right here, which is the entrance into our vegetable garden. We figure we'll put a nice archway over the entrance. We can grow flowering vines on top of it, make a very nice accent for anyone as they enter in this main vegetable part of the garden.
Now, to get started with this project, you'll need a short list of tools and materials. First of all, you need 2 4-foot-long 2x4s, some heavy gauge wire, some wire cutters, some pliers to bend the wire around.
And also, later on we'll be showing you exactly when and where you need this, but you'll need to come along in order to squeeze the cattle panel together in order to improve the arch, make it stronger. If you don't have one of these, try and borrow one. If you can't do that, most rental companies will have one of these that you can get a hold of fairly cheaply. Also, probably you'll need a short piece of chain to help you hold on the come along. Of course, a tape measure, a sledgehammer for the stakes, and a long level is going to be very helpful to make certain that your bases are nice and level and smooth so that your archway has a good sound base and it's not going to be crooked.
Now, of course, the archway itself is made of a cattle panel, and the one we use in this project is what they call a 10-bar cattle panel because it has 10 galvanized rods that make the cross pieces on it. It measures 16 feet long and 4 feet 4 inches wide. Now, cattle panels come in various dimensions or configurations. You want to make sure you get the 10-bar style because it has large enough openings for your plants to grow through and for your produce to hang down through. It's a nice size for vegetables to grow on or for fruits or flowers. You want to make sure also that the rough edges down the sides of it are not too coarse or too rough. If they are, it's a good idea to file those off, especially across the top here where you're going to be rubbing against it.
The other major piece of material that you're going to need, you'll need 2 6-foot heavy-duty T-posts. Now, we've cut them in half. This was done with an acetylene torch. You could do it with a hacksaw. It'll take you longer, but with only 2, it's not an impossible task. We've got 3 of these driven in already. The sides of the arch need to be 6 feet apart. Make sure that they've been smoothed so that they're level, as I mentioned before. As you set the base in, tilt them in slightly towards the top. Also, put the rough edge on the inside. The cattle panel will fit down on the inside, and this will help catch it and make it hold much better. Drive the stakes in so that there's about 18 inches sticking up out of the ground. This will allow you to tie the cattle panel in 2 places on each stake, and that will add a considerable degree of stability to it if you can tie it in the 2 places. Well, I'm going to get this stake driven in, and then we'll get on to the next step.
Our next step is to put the cattle panel itself in place. And as you can see, this is a good job for 2 people. One person could probably do it, but
it would definitely be a workout.
Yeah, it'd take a little effort.
There.
As you can see, immediately it makes a change in the landscape. In this form, though, the rounded arch, it's not very stable, though. And you can imagine in the summertime, if this is covered with plants, it would have a lot of weight on it, especially if you're growing gourds or some other heavy-bearing vegetable, and it could really topple over in the wind. It's not very stable.
Now our next step, what we need to do is to squeeze this arch in to make more of a pointed arch in the top, making a much more stable structure. And let's get everything assembled, and we'll do that next. All right. This side hooked. this one back, hooked. Let's start tightening this up.
Well, we're all set up to make this rounded arch into a Gothic arch shape. We have our 2x4s attached to the outside, chain on this side and the free end of the come along. We've counted down 4 spaces from the top rod to get our setup. The next step will be to cinch it in to a width of about 26 inches, and that width is measured at the 3rd bar down, the 3rd horizontal bar down. When you have this cinched in to a 26-inch width, then you can release the come along and it should spring back to the right shape.
Now that 26 inches, that's something that Bob came up more or less by trial and error to get the proper shape after it's done. Now as you're squeezing it in, it's probably best to do it a little bit at a time. Where it's going to most likely bend is right along this very top, but it may start bending off to one or the other side. So if you squeeze it in a little bit at a time, provide a little bit of guidance just with your hands to make sure it bends in the right spot, you're more likely to get a good arch. So the next step is start squeezing it in.
Here's 6.5.
Yeah, that'll do it there.
Yeah, close. After you remove the come along and the chain and boards, make sure that it's level all the way around. Check it in this dimension. Also, take your level and set it on the outside and make sure that it's level running this way. That way your arch will look better as you view through it, and it'll be even more stable. If it's not completely level, you can use a shovel down around the bottom and also hammer down a little bit with a mallet and get it just level and looking just right.
And last step, once it's level, is to tie it, as we said, in 2 places to the stakes, on all 4 stakes. And as you look at it, you see we have a much more pointed arch up at the top, and it much more stable, much stronger, really a good lasting arch. If you want a longer tunnel, you can put these arches end on end and fasten them together where they meet, and you can make as long a tunnel as you want and grow most anything that you want on top of them.
In fact, you could weave irrigation line in and out along the lower bars down the length of your tunnel and have them watered automatically as well. Now, with our arch, we intend to grow possibly some honeysuckle or some flowering morning glories up over the top in an ornamental fashion. You could also grow vegetables on them, or possibly some grapes.
Now, if you're wondering about what the total cost of this was, our cattle panel generally run about $16, a little over $16. You can sometimes get them on sale. The T-posts, for the good heavy-duty 6-foot T-posts, generally $2.75, $3 at the most. So total cost, if you exclude the little bit of wire, is just about $22 at the maximum for a good solid arch.
And if you're in doubt as to the strength of the arch, you can see from this it will hold 2 full-size adults.
So if you want a relatively inexpensive, long-lasting, and sturdy arch, you may want to look at one of these.